Premier League is finished, ladies and gentlemen. The Premier League is finito. It's time to reflect. It's time to reassess as Manchester City win their legal battle with the Premier League and the lawmakers regarding associated party transactions deemed unlawful, deemed null and void. The consequences of this are quite frankly frightening. Frightening. And it leaves you with this, at least for me, given my stance over the last couple of years regarding our ownership, it leaves you with an uncomfortable feeling of what options are left if you share the idea that I do, that Daniel Levy, whilst being a bottleneck of the football club's success on the pitch, is not responsible for the lack thereof of it, in my opinion, because the elephant in the room is the ridiculous, uneven, unequal playing field. The dice are loaded, and attempts to create sustainability measures, attempts to rebalance the outcomes have been ludicrously inept, ludicrously inadequate. And whether or not they were not challenged, but just deemed inefficient, ineffective, whether they were left alone and then danced through by some very clever accounting policies of the smartest men in the room, who do not work for the Premier League, by the way, then we've eked towards a system of policies and laws that are always up in the air, always challenged on their legality, and ultimately ever moving towards an attempt to create better outcomes, but failing miserably at it. 92% of all trophies in the last 25 years have been won by 5 teams. 2 teams have won 75% of all trophies, give or take, I believe, in the last 12. It is ridiculously boring. And what's happened today and what happened yesterday is essentially the final nail in the coffin for anybody who happens to be a fan of, as things stand, 98% of footballing teams around the world. As the rules are being reversed, not only will compensation be paid, heads should roll for this, in my opinion. And as I say, it leaves you with a very uncomfortable situation where, even if you don't believe that Daniel Levy is the problem or the ultimate problem as to why Tottenham do not have as much success as they used to, the same as Aston Villa, the same as Newcastle, Nottingham Forest, Leeds, Derby, Leicester, West Ham, etc. All of those teams, sorry, I said Leicester, I shouldn't have done. All of those teams used to be generally as successful, give or take, as Tottenham were. None of them win trophies anymore. They've all changed their owner. Some of them seemingly moving in the right direction. Others have hit bankruptcy along the way. In any event, even if you do not subscribe to the notion of the Levy out narrative, that he is the problem, he is the cancer, the parasite, whatever is the nomenclature that is bandied around to describe him, depending on your personal stance, in my opinion, as we're going to go through over the next 90 minutes. And by the way, when I finish the story, when I've got my say out of the way, I will be putting the StreamYard link up. All of you, not just members, all of you, any of you that want to come on and have your say, whether you're Levy in, Levy out, somewhere in between, it doesn't matter. I'm open-minded to all of it. But ultimately, I land right now, or at least I'm tempted to land right now, on the notion that either all fans come together, not just Tottenham League fans, Tottenham Hotspur fans, all fans within the Premier League, outside of possibly the big 3-4 teams that are owned by state-backed models, need to come together and hold the feet of the Premier League lawmakers to the fire and say, figure this out, because competition is done. The Premier League is finished if this continues. Either that happens, or if it doesn't, then Daniel Levy selling to anyone other than a state-backed owner is largely irrelevant, because Daniel Levy is not going to change his spots. He is not going to suddenly engage in the dark arts. And so I will never be Levy out. I do not agree. I do not subscribe to this notion that many of them, the people that do and who represent that motion, that movement, feel. I don't subscribe to those same things. So I maybe park myself into its own little corner where if you can't beat them, join them. And on that basis, I need something that represents that. Levy sell, Levy go, Levy move, Levy pick up the phone, speak to Qatar. Let's figure this out, because if Tottenham fans want to win trophies, and this and what's happened today is going to be the path of the course, and it's not just the end of the story, it's the start of the story. The rolling back of rules is going to create even more imbalance, even more problems. And it doesn't matter how good your transfer spend is, how good you get it right. At the end of the day, with the rules as they're currently about to become again, the deepest pockets wins. It's a race to the bottom. And as I say, it's disappointing, it's frightening, it's scary, it's terrifying, but it is what it is. We're going to talk about it right now, guys. There's 196 people of you in here already, and we've been going for 4 minutes. I love that. Very nice of you. Please smash the like button if you enjoy this sort of content. Hit the subscribe if you haven't already. Hit the notification bell. If you can't spend the next 90 minutes with me where we go through all of this in a bit more detail, then you can get the Cliff Notes over on Football Inc. and on Sean Butler TV. Both of those links are in the description, where we talk about all things well, not necessarily just Tottenham, but football finance on Sean Butler TV, sometimes on Football Link, but also on Football Link. Obviously, Johnny, he's away on holiday at the moment. He's back tomorrow, coming back to an absolute firestorm, no doubt. But it's going to be interesting. We've got a lot to go through. I've got the Daily Mail article, the first one to drop it. It's a really interesting take. I'm going to have to fill in some of the gaps that the article doesn't go into, and we'll get together and chew through it as a team tonight. Let's find out who's in the house just quickly. Lazy Eight's in the house. Good to see you. Your APT video depressed the hell out of me, Shawnee. You've already seen it, man. Bring me better news. I can't. I'm just doubling down on my notion that I think maybe, unless Daniel Levy's going to change the habits of a lifetime, then unless, I have been calling for this for years, I do not deny that Daniel Levy may be a bottleneck, but the biggest problem is these things. It's the rules, and if the smartest men in the room are figuring out loopholes or figuring out legal precedents in which the rules have been essentially set and standardized as null and void, then solving for that is the primary concern of me. And if you can't solve for it, then if you can't beat them, join them. Let's see what else is going on. Good to see you, Nick, by the way. Sean, your placement of Levy on the thumbnail and that expression, buddy, you two having some Valentine's fun. Yeah, by the way, why aren't you out with your other halves tonight? Why aren't you out with them? I don't know. Maybe you want to sort of chew the fat with me. We'll figure it out. But good to see you all. Hope you are loved up. Good luck to you. Not me. I'm loved up to Bugsy, and Bugsy's been in hospital all day. She hasn't had anything like the same sort of bad news as Sava and Frank. Shout out to Sava. Appreciate the video you put out earlier, mate. Appreciate the support if you're watching this. And obviously, I'm devastated to hear about Frankie, mate. He's a legend in my eyes. And I'm so sorry to hear about the sad news, mate. Bugsy sends her best wishes. She's just had a tooth out and another ear inspection and more things pulled out of her ear. She somehow manages to get weird things in her ear all the time, and it drives her up the wall. Anyway, and she's also cut her leg open and had to have that stapled. She's been in the wars, so send some love to Bugsy. Good to see you, Blaine. Appreciate you, mate. Any chance you'll be at the match on Sunday? I will be, Nick. Are you coming over? I will be. I'll even be at the protest. I just won't be singing the songs. Spurs King, Daniel Levy, biblical stinker, and hooked. I don't blame him for this. I blame the Premier. I blame Richard Masters. The guy is shambles. He's shambolic. The guy should be this incompetence needs to be. We need to be compensated with his sacking. He should be hooked. Smash the likes and subscribe, guys. Blaine Devlin saying evening, all evening. Big up Sean. Big up Eugene. Hope you're okay, my man. Good to see you. Blaine Devlin just gifted 5 Spurs Talk Show memberships. Really appreciate you, Blaine. It's very nice. Really lovely way to start the show. Listen, you don't need it tonight, but if you are the recipient of these 5 Talk Show memberships, if you're one of them, then say thank you to Blaine. He's an absolute legend. I hope he comes on when I put the link out in a little while. And you, Blaine, thank you so much for doing it. But look, tonight you don't need the memberships. It's open to all. But on Monday, I'm doing a fan show. So you will need your memberships if you want to be the first early birds on that. That's how it works. Thank you so much, Blaine. I really appreciate it, man. Absolute legends. You are very critical of state-owned clubs. Not critical of them. Not critical at all. I'm just talking about the realities of the situation. I've got no problem. Listen, there's no billionaire that's clean. 100%. If we're talking about Joe Lewis, go and check out Patagonia. If you want to be look into the private equity world, go and look at Blackstone. Go and look at any of those guys. They've got their finger in literally every company's pie. And there's a hell of a lot of companies out there in the European market and the US market that are filthy when it comes to any kind of audit. So, by proxy of being an owner of it, you are a subscriber to their policies and you endorse their behavior. So I'm not critical of state-owned any more than I am anything else. There's just consequences to the reality. When I talk about Qatar, all I ever say is that there's a political consideration there with the relationship. Given that Tottenham is a Jewish-backed club predominantly. I'm not Jewish. I don't have a dog in that fight, but it's a consideration. It's not even a topic I want to dive into at all because I don't understand it. I only talk about the things I understand. The things I don't, I steer clear of as much as possible. But that doesn't mean that they don't exist, and it doesn't mean that they're not part of the conversation. I just don't know how to feel about them because I don't have as strong feelings as people that may lean one way or the other on the various contextual notions of what those topics involve. So, yeah, first time I've seen you, but appreciate the criticism. Eugene, big up, Blaine. Big up. Hello. Good to see everyone. The idea that allowing the richest clubs to destroy the competitive nature of the league. Clicked and got instant warned. What did you get warned about? Huh? Let me know what that means. What did you get instant warned? Is that part of the hack? I don't know what that means. Don't know what's going on there. I hope everything's okay. Let me know. Bye. It's a travesty. Evening, Sean. Let me know what that. I'm curious what that means. What does this mean? By the way, what did you get warned about? What did you get warned about, Ryminster? I hope hope everything's good there. That would be crazy. Spurs GCTV member for 15 months, 16 months even. Thank you very much for the support. Keep up the great work, buddy. Appreciate you, buddy. Right, because in the interest of getting onto this, I want to get into it. We've been going for a little while now. Nick Lazy, member for 31 months. Jesus Christ, that's loyalty. I love you. Love you, man. Love you. I'll be there on Sunday, buddy. Let me know how to get in touch. I will. How do I figure that one out? Can you message me, Nick, on Twitter, and we can share telephone numbers again, mate? I've obviously changed my number 1,000 times since the last time we spoke, probably. Anyway, happy Friday to you, MJ. Good to see you. What do you mean Premier League finished? I mean competitive nature of the Premier League is finished. Not that it's already particularly alive or still going. Let's get into the story. Let's see what is going on. Let me just change and pivot to a slightly different version of. There we go. That will do, won't it? That's fine. Okay. Right, guys, let's chew through this, shall we? Premier League in crisis as they lose the legal battle with Manchester City over unlawful sponsorship rules. By the way, I can't see the comment section for the time being, so just give me a little while. I'll come back to it. And the verdict could have serious consequences for all clubs. Man City challenged the Premier League's rules on sponsorship deals in 2023. The rules were introduced after the Saudi-led takeover of Newcastle United. The Premier League has suffered a significant setback after a tribunal deemed its sponsorship rules, which operated for almost 3 years, null and void. In a bombshell verdict that could now trigger a series of giant compensation claims and plunge the competition into crisis, an independent panel has sided with Champion City and deemed that the league's associated party transactions regulations, which ran from December 21 to 2024, were unlawful in their entirety. After proposed deals with Etihad Airways and First Abu Dhabi Bank were blocked in 2023, City took the Premier League to court, effectively declaring war. They claimed that the Premier League's APT rules around commercial deals, clubs with parties linked to them, were unlawful, and they were right. In September last year, a tribunal agreed with City, highlighting 3 elements which it deemed unlawful. One was the fact that the shareholder loans, where parties with stakes in clubs such as Arsenal and Liverpool often lend money at low or no interest rates, were not an to the same fair market values test included in the APT rules. So let me just kind of break this down for you, right? If you're an owner that has an umbrella company, an umbrella organization above it, and you want to fund your football club, then there's options available to you. One of them, of course, is to find the value proposition of a different part of your umbrella organization that can sponsor your stadium, sponsor your shirts, sponsor your clubs in a variety of different ways. And that money will be transitioned into the club, which will help you fight off the FFP things and count as revenue into the footballing team and counts as the overarching income generating number. Now, normally, or in the past, Manchester City tried to put in a deal, a renewal of their Etihad sponsorship that was massively inflated above what any other deal was getting done at the time. And the Premier League, under Daniel Levy's, generally speaking, he's been the biggest poster boy for this FFP, been the kind of champion of trying to stop other, this sort of dissident 3 or 4 teams from doing this stuff. He got everyone on board and they basically said it's unfair. And the Premier League agreed and stepped in under the rules and said, you can't have that deal. We're going to block that sponsorship deal. Manchester City said, fine. But if that's the case, first of all, we're not sure if it's legal. So they had to then go back to the drawing board and get a different deal at a lower number that was more commensurate with other teams around the world who have similar sorts of pricing deals, et cetera, et cetera. Now, similar to how you value a footballing player, values in the eye of the beholder, because a striker to one team that already has superstar strikers is not going to be as valuable to a striker that only needs a striker. Sorry, to a football club that only needs a striker. And so Erling Haaland might be £70 million minimum to everybody, but to Arsenal, he's worth 150. To Real Madrid, he might not be worth as much, right? Because they already have the solutions in that place. And so value is in the eye of the beholder when it comes to footballing players and assets. But when it comes to fixed assets, then the rules are that you can't just be ridiculous in your valuation, especially if you are getting the money from a company that is tied to the overarching owner. And Man City said, I'm not sure if that's even legal anyway, we'll take you to court. But for what it's worth, on top of that, at the very least, you should hold some consistency, because if you're going to hold our feet to the fire on that, then what about Arsenal and Liverpool, whose owners in Kroenke and FSG, they are loaning money to the football club at 0 interest rates, which wouldn't happen anywhere else. It wouldn't happen in normal business. Someone who doesn't know you wouldn't give you money for free. So why is it okay for their owner to lend money from their overarching asset net wealth or from financial companies that they're associated with at 0 when that wouldn't happen in the rest of the world? And they won that case, right? So then in November of last year, the Premier League got together and had to vote on amendments to the rules. And in a nutshell, as I won't necessarily bore you with the whole story, but in a nutshell, here's the cliff notes. In fact, I don't even need the story. If you want the story, I'll put the league I'll put the article in the link later for you. But in a nutshell, what happened was they said, okay, on that basis, then we will stop companies that are tied to or owners of these companies that also own football clubs, saying you can no longer charge 0 or very low interest rates. You have to do it at the market rates. And if the baseline interest rate in the UK is 4.25% now, at the time it was 4.5%, then that's the minimum that you should charge. But ultimately, because it's a commercial endeavor, you also have to have traditional fair market value. And so in a world where Newcastle United wanted to be funding their stadium, and it was the money, if the money was going to come from the PIF fund, then the PIF fund would have to charge interest rates on the debt, right? And now Tottenham got 2.75% or whatever it was on their long-term structured debt. But that was in a time back in 2019 where the base rates was 0.5%. And thanks to Daniel Levy's genius at negotiating these things with the covenants with the various banks, he managed to lock us into a really, really nice mortgage. But those prices changed because of the inflation in the markets, because of the war with Ukraine, because of COVID. And so now the price, it got up to 5%. Now it's at 4.25. But back in November, it was 4.5. And if Newcastle wanted, they would have to then put on extra value on that in terms of fair market values. And so it would probably be at best about 8%, right? Now, 8% of 1.2 billion or 1.5 billion, whatever that stadium's going to cost, is essentially $100 million, $85 million a year just in interest payments alone on a long-term venture debt. And so that would be very prohibitive to Newcastle, whose revenues are just nowhere near as good as Tottenham's yet. And so consequently, that relationship was sort of shelved. And right now, Newcastle are thinking about the stadium, but they're not sure about it. In a nutshell, what's now changed is that Manchester City went back to court and said, none of this is legal. It's not okay. You can't do that. And you know what? They were right. I said at the time that it isn't fair that you can have covenants that stop you from, your left hand sponsoring your right hand, but at the same time, it's okay for Arsenal to do what they're doing. It isn't. What's good for the goose is good for the gander. Now, I believe that both should exist, but obviously I don't know the legal precedents on that stuff. So I had no idea. It turns out that Man City were right. The whole thing is illegal. So all of that stuff is now going to be wiped away. Now, they might be subject to some more appeals. The appeals from the appeal might be appealed against, etc. But in a nutshell, the direction of travel here is clear that City are right about that. City probably also, when you think about this situation, when you think about the notion that they have the smartest lawyers in the room and the smartest accountants, they probably feel very confident about the 115 charges, at least in bulk, en masse. Generally, there might be some things that they're guilty of amongst them, but generally speaking, they're probably going to be okay about that. That tribunal has already been held. We just don't know the result of it yet. And it's amazing how no story remains secret in football ever. And yet this one, there's people out there that do know the detail, that do know the outcome, and yet no one is leaking it to the press. And when you look at how much money Manchester City spent in January and the fact that they put on a 9-year contract for Haaland, everything points towards a dismissal of those charges. And so where we find ourselves in a nutshell is the situation where yesterday the anchoring rule and the PSR rule and the squad cost ratio rules, all of that was shelved. So as a reminder, last year and the season before, we had this profile in place, this policy in place whereby teams are only allowed to lose £105 million over a 3-year period. It's less than that if you've been in the championship, etc. But generally speaking, it was those rules regarding how you can amortize, how you can relate the revenue of your club versus the profitability of it and the losses of them outside of interest, outside of debt, outside of infrastructure spend. Then if you lost more than 105 million over 3 years, like Nottingham Forest did, like Everton did twice, then you had these punishments. Nobody was found guilty of that this year, but the rules were going to pivot towards squad cost ratios that were going to see 85% as a threshold in the Premier League, unless you played in Europe. And if you play in Europe, it's 70%. But for the Premier League, 85% was going to be the limit of how much money your club could generate or how much money your club could spend from what it generates on the combination of amortized transfer fees, player agents fees, and the wages of your coaching staff and your players when you're playing a squad. That's all been shelved because they got together last week and essentially said, why are we changing the rules again if we don't even know if the previous rules were even lawful? We're going to find that out first, APT rules, etc. And so that's been shelved, as has the idea of anchoring. And anchoring was a new vibe that was going to come in alongside the squad cost ratio rules, but that was still up in the air, although it was technically approved. It's all been shelved. The anchoring rule essentially said, in order to make the playing field a little bit more level, then we were going to add another criteria. And that was alongside the 85% threshold rule. Then if you were okay there, then there was another consideration. And that was that whoever is the lowest revenue generating team in the Premier League, then you can 5 times that number. And that is the max that anyone can spend. And on last year's Premier League makeup, the teams that were in it, if you were to put that rule in place then the lowest revenue team was Burnley. And essentially the only team that would be able to spend less money than the 85% threshold of squad cost ratios was Manchester City, because their revenue was up near 800 million. And so they would have been able to spend 550, 570, something like that. And then because of the Burnley's revenue, their cap would have been lower. Now, I said at the time, as much as it's a nice idea to again limit the abilities of these teams with massive spending power and huge ambition, that ultimately it's so easy. It takes 3 seconds of thought to work out how you can dance around these rules. If you remember, I've shown a few times on different videos. Last year, Johnny and I were talking about loopholes to the current PSR rules. And I said on the video, it's very easy. Here's one example of 10 that haven't yet materialized, but I would imagine that any of these would be a way for these people to dance through the rules. One of them, I said, if you're a team that's like Newcastle and Chelsea and they're scratching each other's back and they want to help each other out, then given the fact that you receive all of the money for for selling your youth players onto the books now, but if you buy a player from somewhere else, then you can amortize it over 5 years, then the easiest thing to do would be have a relationship with another team and say, I'll take your young player, you can take ours. They're both valued at 10 million quid each on paper, but because there's no fair market value ability to like enforce when it comes to players, because value is in the eye of the beholder, then you can essentially value both players at £50 million. I sell to you, you sell to me. We both get the £50 million from the sale on our books immediately, but the purchase gets amortized over 5 years. And so in so doing, you immediately raise your revenue numbers, you immediately create new ways to spend money, even though it doesn't really matter in real terms whether you charged them £10 million or 50, as long as the valuations were the same, it's all good. Good for the goose, good for the gander. So that was then, right? And 48 hours later, that exact thing happened with Newcastle and Villa. As soon as the anchoring rule came out, I said, there's an obvious loophole here. let's look at this season. This season's 20 teams in the Premier League. Ipswich is the lowest revenue generating team. Now, I'm just going to use round numbers here because I don't know the specifics, but let's say that Newcastle, that Ipswich's revenues were £100 million, just for argument's sake, right? Then the 5 times rule, the 5 times anchored rule would mean that everybody could spend a maximum of £500 million. That's it. And so again, the only team that would be able to spend more than that under the 85% consideration that works in line with it would be Manchester City. So they would be essentially limited to about 60% of their revenue and really hamstrung by it. Now, everyone's okay with it on paper until you just think for a second, well, hang on a minute. Why wouldn't Manchester City look at Ipswich, who they're not a challenge, they're not a threat for? City are after titles, Ipswich are after survival. There's no overlapping concern. There's no conflicts here. Manchester City could literally just scratch the back of Ipswich by saying, whoever your best player is, best young player, we'll pay you £50 million for him. We'll even loan him back to you for 2 years. So, like, it's essentially, we're doing this for monetary reasons, for spend reasons elsewhere, not for anything else. And so Ipswich they might lose the actual player as an asset, but in terms of does it affect their team? No. So it's good for Ipswich. They get a player that's worth 5 times more than, or 3 times more than he really is. So it's good for the books. It's also amortized at a certain valuation. And so the reality is that that there's every value there. And consequently, the situation is that Manchester City then can 5x that additional revenue, right? Because Ipswich have gone from £100 million to £150 million on revenue, thanks to the Ipswich, thanks to the transaction, and therefore that adds 5 times that multiplier, makes their revenue £250 million more on top of Manchester City's ability to spend. That is where the loophole exists. That is why even the anchoring rule in principle is an absolute joke, but that's been shelved anyway. And consequently, guys, you know, the situation is that we're going back now to a rule whereby we've got £105 million in allowable losses, and that's about it. To me, if now any club with the willingness to buy and trade, the willingness to deal with sponsorship deals now has absolutely no limits, then you can essentially expect Newcastle United and Manchester City and everybody else to just get hold of yeah, exactly. 100%. You just go away, doing some business here. The reality is, guys, that the situation is a joke because Manchester City now, not only are they going to get compensation, and they are going to get £20 million of legal fees paid back, they're going to get compensation for any deals that used to be a problem that are no longer are. And according to the rules, according to the new statement, if these teams can sit there and argue that the denied deals that were refused them broke them competitively, I don't know how they would argue that, considering that Manchester City won the league in all 3 of those seasons. But if they did make the argument, not only will they get their legal fees paid for, they will also get their compensation. The idea that this system is in any way, shape, or form fit for purpose is madness. Manchester City now can get the Etihad on the phone, the Etihad side of their business on the phone, and say, whatever the deal was, £25 million a year for the stadium, or £15 million a year for the stadium naming rights, let's do a 10-year deal and pay you £100 million a year, because ultimately now the idea that fair market value is unlawful means that the team with the deepest pockets, the team that has owners that can move money around and have a different relationship with money wins. And that, to me, is massively problematic, which brings us back to Tottenham Hotspur. How does this affect Tottenham? Well, look, we've got an owner, whether you like it or not, that is, I don't think, responsible for the biggest reasons why we don't win trophies anymore. I've said this for a million times. I'll say it another million. The inability to set fair, reasonable rules is ridiculous. But right now, it looks like, and as I say, I'm not the smartest guy in the room, but it takes me 3 seconds to be able to find loopholes in any proposed rule. And so if I can find the loopholes and you can find the loopholes, you better believe that the smartest men in the room can. And on top of that, they're now not even worried about loopholes. Now they're just on the ability to find whether they're lawfully viable anyway, of which it turns out they're not. So what do we do as a football club, as a Premier League enthusiast of someone that I believe the lack of competition? 92% of all trophies in 25 years gone in 5 directions. It's boring. 75% of the last 12 years gone in 2 directions. It's boring. What is it that is the solution? Well, either, in my opinion, guys, we get everybody from all walks of different fans to come together and protest against the Premier League and the inability to create this fair set of playing fields, because nobody's going to win a trophy anymore. Nobody apart from Newcastle and Manchester City and whoever else is owned by state clubs that have different relationships with money will ever win trophies, because you can just sponsor yourselves for $1 billion if you wanted to, and that's it. Right? That's it. It's game over. It is game over. And you know what else is happening? At the same time, the Premier League still have the ability to make rules, but every year it seems like that little cabal that once upon a time was just Manchester City and Chelsea, then it became Manchester City, Newcastle and Chelsea. Now it's Manchester City, Newcastle, Chelsea and Aston Villa. They only need 3 more. They only need 3 more. And under the £105 million loss rules, as much as Manchester United are not in the same ballpark financially, but they could easily be convinced to get on board things, to change, to obfuscate, and they could get into that trap because they still have an ability to generate obscene wealth through their brand. Arsenal, now that the laws around debt-free interests are being reversed, do the Cronkies want to get back on board? Because they've got so much money and so much willingness to do it that the only reason they had to charge the interest in the first place latterly was because Manchester City said, well, whilst we're figuring out whether it's lawful at all, let's at least keep it, fair, in as much as if you're going to stop us, you should stop them. You should stop Liverpool doing the same thing. How about the anchoring rule? All you've got to do is get a couple of the clubs that are coming up or that are perennially up, down type of teams, like a Burnley, like maybe in the past, like a Fulham, maybe, I don't know, maybe like an Ipswich, maybe a Southampton, those sorts of teams that go up and down. They're never going to be a threat to the teams at the top. But you know what? They would love to be able to keep hold of their best players, because if you're a selling club, you have to sell your best players. Maybe you don't anymore under an anchoring rule whereby Manchester City can say, we'll buy your player for 50 million, even though he's only worth 10. We'll loan him back to you for 2 years, because ultimately, what's more important to us is that the revenue number that you work towards is as high as possible, so that we can 5x that and then work towards our own numbers. Not that that's even that relevant when they could just write their own checks around the sponsorship valuations. The whole thing is a joke. And so it leaves me with 2 things. Either the fan base comes together, not just at Tottenham, but at every other team that's not part of that cabal, and says, we have to protest against this. It's ridiculous. Or if it's easier, then we'd say, if you can't beat them, join them. And then we do everything we can to bring in a state owner. But, that brings in the question of, well, not just a state owner, but any owner that has a disregard for money. But you can basically write off private equity there, because they're not going to sort of people that are going to write silly checks. They're not. Or you can hold Daniel Levy's feet to the fire and say, it is what it is. But you know what? In terms of football clubs that have owners that have different assets, different companies under their umbrella, some of which might be public facing, B2C. Remember, for stadium naming rights, that sort of stuff, it's a very specific thing you're looking for. You're looking for a company that is global reach, that has global reach, that can benefit from the exposure of stadium awareness, and that is B2C. That's why airlines work. That's why tech companies work. There's not a huge amount of other kind of sort of brands out there that really cover that market, where everyone from China to Russia to everywhere in Europe and North America, everyone's aware of the same company, and that exposure is going to help them. And even then, if you find that person, you find that company, are they going to want to pay 5-10 times the actual valuation to participate in the fact that there are no rules around it? Well, they're not, unless they are an owner of the football club at the same time and they happen to think that it's worth diversifying some money from this particular pot into this particular pot because the juice in the Premier League is worth the squeeze. I don't know if Tavistock Group has those brands in amongst them, but I don't think they do. ENIC certainly doesn't. So then you go, well, what's left? Well, probably Kuwait, right? Probably Brunei, probably Norway, but they haven't got any interest in football. I don't know, guys. Let me know your thoughts. To me, I just think that what's happened today is an absolute disgrace. There's 400 people here. If you're interested, I'm going to put out the link. I don't want to be going all night long on this topic, but I do also want to talk a little bit about Manchester United tomorrow because it is on Sunday. It's a massive game. Here's the link. If you want to come on, add some value, add some takes. Let me plug it, pin it, whatever you want to call it, to the. And I apologize about my mother coming in for a second. She's looking after my dog who's been sick. How do I do this? Here we go. Replace pin message. There you go. If you want to come on, you're more than welcome. Other than that, not a lot to talk about really, is there? Apart from you got the protests on Sunday. That was funny last night, wasn't it? I mean, I was having a nap. at 8 o'clock. I had no idea about anything. I've never spoken to anyone from Change for Tottenham. Never known, never been a part of my sort of knowledge and my zeitgeist. No one's ever asked to be on my channel. I haven't asked anybody. I don't know any of them. So I was completely unaware of anything going on. Dialed into Ricky's show and then had about 3 minutes worth of, something's happened. I was like, okay, well, it is what it is, right? And then, and then I just experienced, not that I care, I find it hilarious, but what was it? An hour and a half, 2 hours of obscene messages, directed towards Ricky, even though he was absolutely innocent of any wrongdoing. He didn't in any way orchestrate anything. And poor Billy, he wasn't supposed to be on anywhere else either. It's just absolute madness. And the fallout from it, no doubt, will get swept under the rug. People will make excuses for their behavior. But I saw that video from Saba earlier, and Saba's bang on. Why can't everyone just leave everybody alone? It's you don't know anybody as a person, right? And if you are someone that feels so strongly about people because they feel differently to you about certain topics that are largely meaningless in life, then what are you doing? The hate, it's so unnecessary to even sometimes I do a video, right, and about something just like a Tottenham clickbait training transfer thing. Some of the shit that gets sent, I'm like, you don't have to watch. You don't have to watch. If you don't like it, you ain't got to watch. But you not only do you watch it, but then you go out of your way to leave vitriol in the comments. What are you hoping to achieve? Is it just to ruin someone's day? And if so, why? What is so sad about your life? Why are you so unhappy that you want to drag other people down to that level? You should, if anything, I don't know, fucking leave everyone alone, right? Let everyone do their thing. It's crazy. It's madness what I see. Just move on with it, Yeah. I don't even have Excel. Regards, Daniel. I don't even have Excel. I'm a pencil and paper man myself. I make my notes that way. But yeah, look, I'm sure it happens on both sides. I'm sure people on the other side get as much hate as well. So I'm not saying it's a one-sided thing, but it's just unnecessary, especially if you're directing people and they go over there and do that. Grow up. Fuck. Anyway, it is what it is. Anyone want to come on? I can round it off if you want. Or we can talk about Manchester United. I think the link is there. I think the link is still there. If you want to talk about the... let me see. What did I get to in the chat before the thing? Big love, man, says 2 sides of Spurs pod all the way from Indiana. Nice, buddy. Nice. It's a nice. That's a rare state when you ask people where are you from in America. You don't often hear Indiana. I've been to Indiana several times, funnily enough, when I worked in America. I think I visited 37 states, I think, in my 2 years there for work. A lot of traveling. But yeah, look, guys, that's the state of play with regards to the FFP PSR rules, right? Everything's up in the air. They don't meet again, I don't believe, until like April. I'm sure there's conversations that are going on. But in a nutshell, the rules are going to be parked back to where they were, £105 million losses. Those things are going to screw over probably Manchester United. It also doesn't bode too well for Aston Villa with the losses side, but it does bode well for them with regards to the 96% threshold, unless if they qualify for Europe, then it might look different. But their revenues are going to be super. If they continue to do well in the Champions League, then their revenues are going to be very, very much inflated because they've already made 75 million euros this season alone, just in the Champions League. And that doesn't even include sponsorship deals, etc. So like, I think Aston Villa will probably be on for record revenues, but they still have a massive issue with regards to their thresholds, especially if they do qualify again. We shall see. Let's have a look. Paddy Hartnett's in the house. Big up, Shawnee. Hope all is well. Shame on me. Yeah, look. Yeah, I don't know what I've done. I don't know what I did. I know. I was like, I'm used to getting a little bit of like pushback when I go on channels. Well, what have I done? I didn't do anything. Anyway, whatever. It is what it is. Coming from Sarah, Levy ain't going nowhere. In my opinion, he needs to step aside from the football matters. But yeah, but this is the thing, though, right? Like, unfortunately, a lot of people don't really care about the wider picture. But that's why I've been saying for so long. You should care, because it's a moving target. It's a moving piece, and it's massively influential. Like, these rules being revoked, reversed, deemed unlawful. Like, it doesn't matter whether Daniel Levy goes out and drops every penny that the current rules allow him to this summer, and he gets every single absolute perfect signing in, and they stay fit, and we absolutely smash it. It won't matter if what this looks like, the fallout from it will be, is that certain teams with certain owners can just spend whatever they want. They can just write a check with as many zeros as long as the other side is okay. And if you don't really care because A, you've got enough money in the world, it doesn't matter. B, Etihad can do whatever, the airlines company can do whatever they want. And if the argument is, well, Etihad Airlines are not going to want to have £1 billion taken off of their revenue, well, what's to stop the Abu Dhabi group just putting £1 billion into the Etihad group to make them right? There's no rules around FFP in the airline industry. So as long as you have owners that don't care, you can just move numbers around now, write checks, and it's done. The game is over. And you know who's going to benefit? The players and the agents. Because it's going to do now is just create, in the top end, it's going to create massive inflation. And also it's going to create an inability for everybody else to be able to compete. Because as I say, if City's revenue streams can just generate, bang, and just jump, which is how I interpret it. I could be wrong about this, but it's how I interpret it on paper. Maybe I'm talking about, implausibly large numbers here. But then how can you ever compete on salaries again? Now, you make the argument, well, Man City can only buy 25 players, right? They can only do that. They can only do so much. Well, Newcastle can do the same. Arsenal. So you need an owner then that's going to compete on that front. And I just don't think Daniel Levy's the guy to do it. But again, I can't become Levy out, because Levy out is filled with people that resent the owner. And I don't resent Daniel Levy in any way, shape or form. So it's not a true reflection of how I feel in any way. But ultimately, I still want to see some level of opportunity for success. And if these are the way that the rules are going to filter through, then something's going to have to change. And that's why, like I said, I do support change for Tottenham. I think that the pressure that it exerts is meaningful and valuable. Do I think Daniel Levy's going to sell the club? Maybe on the back of this. Maybe on the back of this, he'll turn around and say the club is now worth more because, ultimately the prize for the winner will continue to go up. There'll be more eyes on it. If there's more money coming into the system in certain directions, then it's going to create more of a drag effect, like a kind of like a latent economic indicator that will draw more money in. The players will get better off, and so like maybe Daniel Levy will say, if the club was worth 3.75 billion before, now it's worth 4.5 because of all of the ability to spend more money, make more money, and get to the top end of the league where you can end up with more generosity in terms of campaign prize money. I think the whole thing is an absolute joke. What's even more of a joke is that no one wanted to come on and say hello. So on that basis, I might as well leave it there, apart from to talk about Manchester United quickly, which is to say, I've got a super chat first. Let me get the super chat. What's going on? Can't be annoyed coming on full of cheesy chips. Can't be annoyed coming on. He's full of cheesy chips. But I'd like your take on Andrew's comments today around Romero and more cryptically around VDV. Interesting as it insinuates psychological issues, perhaps. So those links, I've got Colin on. Hello, mate. Good to see you, Colin. It's been a while, mate. You're growing a fucking beard there, bud. What's going on, mate? How are you?
It's a little rough. I need a haircut and a nice trim. But no, I'm good, man. I'm really good. Working, taking it's my break, and I saw the link and thought, hey, why don't I go join my buddy Sean?
I appreciate
loving
it,
the show, by the way.
Thanks, mate. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Apart from Mummy Dearest coming in looking for a drink, that was height of professional. I was just going, go away. He's like, no, I'm coming in.
Get out of my room, Mom. Get out of my room. No, I feel you. I feel you. It happens. But yeah. I cut you off. You were in the middle of a topic. I don't want to.
Well, I've got a super chat here. I've got a super chat from. I didn't bring it up. Sorry, I was reading it up. I didn't bring it up. Thank you so much, Blaine. You're very generous of you, man. He says he can't be annoyed coming on. It's full of cheesy chips, but I'd like you to take on Andrew's comments today about Romero and more cryptically around Van de Ven. Interesting as it insinuates psychological issues, perhaps. Have you seen these comments?
I have not. No, sir.
I haven't got the comments in front of me. Correct me if I'm wrong, guys. Let me know in the comments. But it was basically saying that there was never any chance of either of them having surgery. It's just more of a case of we're taking a different approach to bringing these guys back, and it's basically a super slow drip feed effect. I then saw other things that were saying that Micky van der Ven basically insisted or was very angry, unhappy that he didn't get to play. He was looking forward to playing against Elfsborg, and when he was told he wasn't going to, that they said, all right, then, if you're that unhappy, we'll give you 60 minutes, even though we don't think you should. And then lo and behold, he was tight and cramped afterwards. And so that's why they've now kind of gone back to the drawing board on it. I mean, if that's the case and you're letting the player decide when he's fit, then what are we doing there, Colin?
Yeah, no, that's unprofessional. To the furthest degree. I had actually heard something too, that they were maybe consulting like an outside group.
That's the other thing, right? They're bringing in people, like they want to get some experts on it to see, why it is that he can't get fully fit. I mean, look, should we really need to be employing? Oh, don't get me wrong. I remember, didn't David Beckham go to some camp in the early 2000s when he had his metatarsal? So I can understand, if you've got a specialist injury, that you might want to go off and get a specialist treatment. But a hamstring now? It's the most common, it's the most common injury in football outside of, I don't know, I think it probably is the most common injury, or maybe a hernia or something. But are we not capable of sorting out our own? Is that what we're saying? Are we accepting the fact that our medical team are just dog shit?
So there are specialists, though. So in the NFL, this is actually somewhat common for players who have recurring injuries to go to people to kind of get to the bottom of what is causing that injury. Supposedly, I heard that they're trying to teach Van de Ven how to run differently, how to actually change his style of running to perhaps protect that hamstring. But yeah, I can't remember the NFL player, but they had found out this specific case that one of his hamstrings was 30% weaker than the other one, which was leading to some kind of an imbalance of the way that he moved and ran and distributed his weight, and caused these recurring injuries. And I think that if our medical team, Sean, here's my take. You said, is our medical team not good enough? Can we not diagnose our own stuff? If we can't, I'm glad they've at least acknowledged that, figured that out, and are getting outside help, because
true.
You know what I mean? And so it isn't a great look, but I will say it isn't the most uncommon thing. And and the guy's 23 years old, so anything we can do to help preserve his career and keep him playing for as long as possible is something great for Tottenham and for him as a human being. So
let me ask you this, mate. With regards Micky van der Ven, because you can only get 40-50% of the season from him, do Tottenham need to find that additional budget where you can't just go and get we've been linked with all sorts of players recently, like a Theo Hernandez, who, by the way, someone put in the comment section on my video the other day that I'm wildly wrong about Hernandez's recent form that he's lost interest or something. His love of the game has fallen. If that's the case, then maybe not. But the player that I remember from a couple of years ago is just absolutely insane. But either way, like, put him aside. Should we be looking for someone who's like a dual role, like, you know, back up to Udogie, back up to Van der Ven, but then Van der Ven can also be back up to Udogie, etc., and Jed Spence can, so like just multiple kind of versatility profiles? Or do you go big for a left-sided centre back who, or maybe just a versatile centre back like Huijsen from Bournemouth, who can play both feet, but ultimately, because you've only got 50% max of game minutes out of Van der Ven because he's just a, you know, walking hamstring now, then do you think that Tottenham need to like dedicate a lion's share of the budget to that when we've got other areas of the team that also need as much attention? We still need a decent striker to replace Richalison. We still need that left winger or the wing forward versatile player, and we still need a 6, in my opinion, that can be that can actually be a leader on the pitch and also help develop some of these young guys that are coming through.
Yeah, no, great question. Great question. Something needs to be done. I've even thought, and I know this is dumb and it didn't work out great last time, but you know, maybe a player in like an Eric Dyer type mold who could play that 6, and also maybe step into the defensive needed. But that, I know that that's not an ideal situation. It would be better to have, like you were saying, an actual defender. Yeah, I mean, there are options. I think he's too valuable to get rid of. I don't think that we will get rid of him. You know, when he's good, he's just so good and so instrumental to the system. Yeah, I think though that you have to wrap him up in you know, blankets and only bring him out in the big games. I think his minutes need to be managed, and for that to be the case and for that to work, we will need another capable starting center back. So it does need addressed, and I honestly, I know there are needs in other areas of the squad, but that position is shown to be so instrumental to the way that we play. So I think that, yeah, we have to get another defender in, and then only use Van der Ven when he's fit and whenever we really need him for big games, in my opinion. Sort of Ledley King-esque, you know?
Yeah, 100%. 100. Yeah, I mean, I'd bring him back in a heartbeat. I'd bring back half of him. James, welcome back, mate. How you doing? Good to see you. You're right. You're on mute.
Yeah, I'm all right. How are you? Yeah, good.
I'm okay, mate. You're not too bad, buddy.
Going out to the game weekend?
Yeah, I'll be there on Sunday. Be there Sunday. Yeah, looking forward to seeing how big the protest is. What's your thoughts on the protest, by the way, boys? James, I'll start with you. Are you an advocate of it? I mean, an advocate of change? Are you an advocate of Levy out? Are you with what's happened today? Like, even I'm like leaning that not leaning towards Levy out, but I'm leaning towards what do we do now? You know?
Yeah, probably. Yeah, I'll be joining in protest. I'll be getting there early because I got to travel up from Worthing, so I got to leave at like 9 o'clock in the morning to get to and then to get over to Seven Sisters. Yeah, so I'm going to be there. I've got a ticket for the game. I'll be marching along the high road. I made a few banners.
You made a few, have you?
Yeah. I've got like paper ones. I put like Levy out and stuff. I've been doing them at work on like
nice.
on my break. I've been putting them on my break. So I think it's time for change, and you know. But even if we don't get change, we put pressure on. But my thing will be him to resign his position. That's just me. That's just, I'm not gonna doubt it for anyone. But if anyone wants to do what they want, so.
Yeah, no, of course, mate, 100%. Yeah, like I say, I always support and champion any protest. I always talk about it. People always think, what was I called a saboteur the other day. Quite the opposite. You know, I don't subscribe. I don't feel the same way that other people do about the owner, and that should be okay. But it doesn't mean that I think that there's no value in it. I think there's massive value. I am interested to see the sizes though, because I've heard. I mean, this has definitely had as much wind behind it as any I've seen in the past. But for the most part, the previous protests that have been organised are, generally speaking, without being disrespectful of them, they don't really get the numbers right. There's like maybe somewhere between 50 and 200 people there, depending on how bad things are, etc. And they sort of whimper out very quickly. Whereas this one, I think, has got so much attention in the media, so much more noise in the stadium for it. Obviously, YouTube has been very much pushing it. So I'd expect it to be the biggest one that I've seen. But if people, I don't know, do you think, Colin, that there's going to be like thousands of people marching, or do you think it's just going to be slightly more than the last few?
So I would really, really like it if it was thousands. That would be wonderful, ideal. Like you said, even if nothing is accomplished right away, it's the beginning of something. If you can get a crowd like that, if you can get that many people to voice their opinion and to show that they're not okay with the way the club's being run. But I unfortunately, I think that just what you said, that it's going to be just slightly bigger. I think the fact that I really hope that the bridge can be, I hope that the beef can be squashed between the two kind of factions. And I think together they're a lot more powerful than separate. And I think if you have two separate groups protesting, it just kind of sounds like a shit show. You know what I mean? I'm not really sure how that would play out.
Is there two separate factions protesting now, is there?
If you believe what's been said on other channels and said by other people, I believe, yeah. I think there's going to be like from what I understand, right? The pure Levy
out one side and then change for Tottenham somewhere else. Okay.
Yeah, that's the leader of the Levy outside has indicated that he doesn't want to be part of the change for the change movement, and that he's strictly Levy out. And I mean, I'm talking about Stelios. I just might as well just say that. But since he's the the leader of that group, he put all that together. But he's made it clear that he doesn't want to really be associated with the change group, and I think that that's an issue. And together they can make a lot more of a difference, I think, than split and having two factions, trying to achieve different things, potentially in two different places. I don't know. It just doesn't it doesn't scream success to me. But
right.
Again,
Yeah, no, I think that at the end of the day, with everything in life, a lot of it comes down to ego a little bit, right? Like you want to feel respected, you want to feel like your voice is heard, and you want to feel like it's because like I said the other day, I think I did my first comeback video after like a few weeks break after more shenanigans, and then I remember, like I said on it, I was like, what's going on? Like, I come back after a little breather, and you've got all these moderates that have moved to the left, but then they're the Johnny come latelys, right? In the eyes of the people that have been ever present over there. Right. And then you have this, excuse me, this vision whereby, well, I've got to differentiate myself from them lot because I've been here the whole time. And that's where you get wild takes like, the reason why we hate Daniel Levy is the lack of cups, but suddenly lifting a cup is now problematic for the movement, or relegation's better for the movement. And I was like, well, that's just mindless madness. But you can understand it from a kind of some level of like psychological insight. Like people want to be, they don't want to get mixed up amongst the kind of vanilla. They want to be on their own color scheme, their own spectrum, right? And you can kind of get it, but if it leads to outcomes whereby you're rooting for the demise of the football club because you think that it's going to end up with what you want, then I think that egos can be useful, but they can also be really, really dangerous at times. And to me, I would make the argument that I always have. I've always said this, that the people that are the loudest voices in the Levy out room needed to engage with the moderates more, because they're the people that turn your numbers from 100 to 1,000, right?
Exactly.
And if you don't want to engage with them and you're pointing fingers and you're saying that they're the problem or however, whatever, the past is the past. But if that's what you're doing, then you're never going to ingratiate yourselves with people that might want to be on your side more. You're going to push them away. But ultimately, it's like in politics, without getting into the American politics, like the left, the Democrats would, if you wanted to win the election, you probably shouldn't have been pushing the movement of some of the more extreme left-sided policies, because you already have that vote anyway. That vote is never going to go Trump, right? So you've already got that vote. So why not win over the middle, who are the people that are undecided? Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like undecided voters. You need to get them,
Exactly. Yeah.
I like that. I like that analogy a lot. And I'm going to have to leave in just like 2 seconds, but I just, again, wanted to say thanks. And I hope everything Sunday goes well. And no hate to anybody, and I understand like what you said, that there's ego and there's feelings involved, and I think part of what went down yesterday honestly was disappointment and feelings being hurt, and we can all relate to that. If something you're expecting to happen and it's a big thing doesn't happen, it sucks and you feel bad, and you might even get angry and react with anger. And I just hope that
I
can be
just feel
retracted.
drained of it all, mate. That's what I feel. I feel drained. I'm drained of it. I'm honestly drained of it. Because I've gone, why am I spending all this money on Spurs? I could be doing my trips, on European trips that I want to go on and have a bit of thing. And I'm just drained of it. Or every single thing is draining of Tottenham.
Yeah. Sure, yeah, it's supposed to be fun, isn't it? It does become problematic. Colin, mate, thanks for popping on, buddy. We're going to round off in a second. I just wanted to just do a quick hour to talk about the thing. But appreciate you, mate. Just quickly, Colin, before you drop score prediction for Sunday.
Ooh, got to play it safe. Go with the 2-1. That's what I always go with. Clean sheets aren't in our in the description. So yeah, I think it's going to be 2-1 Spurs.
Love that.
Yep. All right, man. Have a good one, everybody.
Mate. See you soon, mate. Take care. Cheers, buddy. Bye.
See ya.
James, yeah, we're going to round off as well, mate, pretty soon. So what's your take on the sorry if it's a quick one, mate. I just wanted to do a quick hour. What's the what's your take on the game on Sunday? Park to one side, the protests. How do you think the game? Two teams that are obviously, I mean, pick your poison, isn't it? Both teams are pretty poor at the moment, right? So who's worse?
I think they're worse than us. I think we're going to win. I said 2-0 because I just think they're a lot worse than us. They've got a lot more players. He's coming mid-season, isn't he? So I think we'll get them. And we've got a couple. We've got Vicario back. Udogie's back, isn't he?
Udogie's back. Yeah, Vicario's back. Apparently,
Johnson's back.
Maddison's on the bench. Who did you say was back? Who did you say was back then?
Johnson's back as well.
Brennan Johnson, that's right. Yeah. So we're starting to get some players back.
I think they're worse than us. I think that he's not quite. He doesn't know what his best 11 Amorim is. Do you know that? Like every time he keeps changing everything, and he keeps putting in odd positions. Like he puts Darlow a left wing back, and it's not kind of working. I think he's struggling. I don't know his best. I don't think he knows his best 11. I don't think he knows his best players are, and he's trying to work out with mix and match, and he's like really struggling. I think it's been quite a boring game, actually. I don't think there's going to be a lot of chances in it. That's how I feel. I think there'll be
numbers of chances. I think both midfields are absolutely atrocious. I think both managers haven't got a clue what they can do with what options they have. And I got this. I think it could be like, here we go, 4-2. Like regards Daniel here, Coy's Daniel. I think that it's going to be lots of goals, and I'm up for it. I can't wait. Looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to seeing everyone that's going on Sunday. If you are going, get there early and enjoy the day, and hopefully it will be peaceful. And there will be just
the protest. You're going to be filming it, or are you going to?
I don't think I'll film it. It's not really something I won't film it. I might do some walkthroughs. I might do when I do the walk through the stadium where I just sort of one take Tottenham and just sort of wander through and speak to whoever will speak to me. I often get people saying, you're picking Levy-inners or whatever. I'm like, I'm really not. I'm just picking random people and it's all one take. But if you're doing it after the game in the stadium, then you're probably not going to find too many people that are hardcore Levy-outers. So for the purposes of balance, I probably should do a one take Tottenham through the crowd to see when it was that they.
Just go through the whole stadium.
Go through the whole game. Just keep walking. Just don't even watch the game. Just keep going around the 360. But yeah, I would like to find out of the people that are there. I would like to walk through and find out whether they've always been that way, whether it's a new thing, how strongly they feel. So maybe I'll do that. But that's about it. As long as I'm welcome, I don't know that. I mean,
you need to do your fan cams outside the stadium again. That's what you need to start doing, John. You need to start doing your fan cams. You know, when you used to do them outside the stadium. I really enjoyed those actually. Who's that bloke you have on? That one we really liked. He was really good. Oh, what was his name? He had like glasses. He was old. He's quite good. I liked him. Used to have him on. He was like, and then
Adrian?
Pardon?
Adrian? I don't want to call anybody old. I don't know what you're saying. Someone's old with glasses. Oh, I know who you're talking about. Mr. Masterson. The posh speaking fella. Yeah. The guy. That's his name. Guy Masterson.
I liked him.
I don't want to call him old because that's a disrespectful thing. But yeah, really nice guy. And I think he still hangs around in the comments occasionally. So if I I haven't got his number anymore. Guy, if you're watching this and you'd like to get back in touch, then find me on Twitter, mate, and drop me a DM. I'd love to get you back on, buddy, because James is right. It was a good side. Mate, I'm going to leave it there, bud. I'm going to wish you a happy weekend. I'll see you on Sunday, right? So I'll be around the protest area, and we'll hopefully get some. What's your score prediction? You said, what did you say, 2-1?
I said 2-0.
2-0 Tottenham.
Yeah, I'll probably see you there. I'll pop in and say hello if I see you.
All right, mate. Nice one, buddy. Guys, that's it. Let me know in the comment section below what you think about the rules, because I just think that the competition is done. I think that the game is over, and I think that something needs to change. Now, whether that's, do we really want to shake hands with this notion that if you can't beat them, join them? James is on the beers. I haven't started. I'm on the lemonade at the moment, but there'll be a vodka in there.
Cruz de Campo is my favourite. Cruz de Campo is the best. Get a pack of them.
All right, guys, we'll leave you there. Like, subscribe, and comment. Let us know what you think about the chat. What's going on with it rules. And by the way, thank you very much, Blaine, for your lovely generosity, mate, and the members, and to Spurs GCT. Thank you for the loyalty. Same with you, Nicky boy. See you on Sunday, mate. Can't wait to see you, buddy. And Nick, I still owe you some money for the camera, mate. So I'll figure that out you on Sunday. And also to two sides of the Spurs pod. Love you all, guys. Speak to you soon. Take care. Have a good one. Come on, you Spurs. And as always, bye-bye.